Yeah, hope y'all having a blessed one. Back with another one right here. We got cops horrified after discovering father's disgusting secret. Let's get into this one right here, man.
What led the detectives to this point would be the most gruesome and twisted journey ever.
Hello, San Jose Police? Hello? Oh, yeah. Is that herself? Yeah.
What seemed like an open and shut case of suicide would unravel into something so grotesque, even the most seasoned officers would be horrified.
Can I ask you, was it a foul play or she had some kind of...
Looks like this, but I can't tell.
Eventually, one unexpected clue would lead them towards the most unlikely of suspects.
Damn.
This was the exact moment this 90-year-old father realized his disgusting secret had been exposed. It all started when Karen's friend, Amber Ashfaq, made a 911 call on September 13th, 2018.
San Jose Emergency, what are you reporting?
Yeah, I'm reporting regarding my coworker. She didn't show up for work for last 2 days. I came here and I'm knocking at the door. She didn't answer the door.
Karen Navarro was a quiet 67-year-old woman who lived alone with her 2 cats in a modest house on Terra Noble Way. Known for her dedication and reliability as a pharmacy technician at the San Jose Hospital, she hardly ever failed to reach out, but this time she'd been unreachable for many days. Amber sensed that her friend might be in distress and decided to visit her. When she arrived, she found Karen's door unlocked, which was unusual.
I just slightly pressed the door.
What Amber saw was so shocking that it was worse than any nightmare.
She is sitting on the chair and her face is all black spots on her face. I got scared and came out. I don't know if she's alive or we need emergency medical help, please.
When the officers arrived at the house, they encountered something so horrifying that it would stay with them forever.
Has she moved at all?
Okay, they're good. Thank you very much.
Is she moving at all?
I just went inside and I just came out.
Does she nail like she's passed away?
Don't go inside.
Hello, San Jose Police? Hello? San Jose Police? She's probably gonna be 1055. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Did that herself?
Yeah.
William 1, subject's 1055.
And then we walk into the kitchen area, and that was a shocker.
The kitchen was now a horrific crime scene. Karen was discovered lifeless on the ground, just like her friend had suggested. It was a sight Amber would never forget in her entire lifetime.
I know I shouldn't be asking
No,
this question, but
go ahead.
can I ask you, was it a foul play or she had some kind of...
I don't know exactly. It looks like this, but I can't tell.
At first, it seemed like she'd taken her own life due to the knife in her hand. However, additional evidence would later emerge, suggesting a different explanation for what might have occurred.
One of the very first things that I noticed were some of the wounds to her head and neck.
The presence of injuries consistent with blunt force trauma running down her head and neck showed she'd experienced intense pain prior to her death.
The wounds were very deep and very violent. This woman had been deceased for some time.
After her tragic death, there was only one critical question. Who could have possibly done something so horrible to her? In an effort to gain some clarity, they turned to the last person who could have the answers to the most important questions.
She was my coworker for the past 27 years.
So sorry.
And then she was supposed to work yesterday. She didn't. I She always calls, she didn't show up.
After talking with Amber about Karen, it actually caused more questions to pop up because there was no indication that Karen had a problem with anybody. This was not one of those investigations that there was a clear indicator as to a potential suspect.
So the question remained, who could be responsible for such a terrible act against Karen? As Sergeant Mike Montagnier and his team began their investigation, they noticed the disorder in the house. The house appeared tidy from the outside, but its interior was unexpectedly chaotic. This house seemed to hold some secrets that could break open this entire investigation. At first, the detectives found 4 slices of pizza wrapped in tinfoil and 2 glasses of drink. The conclusion was fairly obvious. It looked like Karen had a guest over before the incident occurred. Karen's death left behind a trail of questions. Did the last person to see her hold the key to her fate? Or did an intruder strike when everyone left and she was alone? The house suggested a burglary. Every question led to dead ends until detectives noticed a game-changing pattern that would change everything.
I worked burglary just before I came to homicide, and I've examined several hundred burglaries. That's not generally how a burglary looks.
What cops discovered next proved Karen's death was the work of an expert mastermind.
There were drawers pulled out, but it didn't appear that anything was dumped. TVs, computers, laptop, her car in the garage, all of her electronic property appeared to be there. There was nothing taken that normally in burglaries would be taken.
We had our concerns that the scene had been staged.
Just too many things don't add up. So the initial thoughts were, it's undetermined. We're going to treat this as a homicide.
Despite searching her home and interviewing her close friends, the detectives still hadn't gathered sufficient information about the timeline of her death. However, the detectives were about to find something very unusual and shocking, which would turn out to be the game-changer evidence in this case. While examining Karen's body
What happened?
closely, the authorities noticed she was wearing a black Fitbit on her wrist.
I knew that it stored different types of data. I knew that it collected step count. I knew that it collected heart rate. I also know that it was a watch. That little device could solve this crime.
Authorities knew that this small device could be very important in reconstructing the last moments of her life. If it detected her heart stopping, it would give detectives her exact time of death.
I had never used any type of wearable technology in an investigation.
The team recognized the importance of the Fitbit data, but they realized that getting the information would require a warrant, which would be time-consuming. While waiting for the same, they focused on other evidence based on Karen's autopsy report, which revealed significant details about the incident. The next moment would reveal something so horrifying the cops could have never ever guessed who the killer would be. Such horrific things would make the killer even more unexpected and terrifying.
The next morning, I got a call. I was told I needed to get over to the medical examiner's office as soon as possible. When I walked into the autopsy suite, they had shaved off portions of Karen's hair to reveal injuries to her head. I could instantaneously see how violent these particular injuries were. When we initially saw her at the crime scene, her hair was matted with blood. Karen's hair covered up some very significant injuries to her head. The doctor who was performing her examination described that any one of these injuries to her head would have been instantaneously incapacitating, which caused me great concern about the injury to her neck. If any of the wounds to her head would have been incapacitating instantly, there's no way Karen could have slashed her own neck. This was not a suicide. It became very clear that it was a homicide investigation.
Therefore, they swiftly intensified their investigation to find any clue about her killer. One piece of evidence found inside Karen's home was a receipt from a nearby grocery store.
And that receipt was time-stamped September 7th, 16:27 hours. It was crucial for our investigation to figure, was she with anybody?
This detail raised more questions. Did Karen go shopping alone? Who might have followed her home? The detectives went to Lucky's looking for video footage that could help them identify a suspect in the case. This is the exact moment when Karen Navarro was last seen alive. Upon reviewing the store's surveillance footage, it was observed that Karen entered the store alone and had appeared to be at ease. The video showed her calmly purchasing her items without any sign of stress. In addition, the footage also showed that when she left, there was no one following her, eliminating the possibility of a stalker.
This video surveillance was really helpful in narrowing down the time when she was last seen. Karen was definitely alive on Friday, September 7th at 4:30.
Her last errand hinted at a social encounter, food for many, but no one to account for. Detectives now faced a chilling question. Who did she meet before everything went wrong? However, this search would not turn up any new leads. Yet. Detectives then went on to interview Karen's neighbors. Some of them had seen her walking her dog in the neighborhood on the morning of September 7th, while others said they had heard loud music from her house a few nights prior, but they didn't provide any essential clues about the tragic day in question. Since Karen lived alone and had no close relatives besides her parents, investigators believed her parents might offer valuable insight into her personal life.
The coroner had already made the death notification to Karen's parents, so we made an appointment to go meet with the two of them over at their house.
Without any delay, the investigators reached out to Karen's mother, Adele, and stepfather, Tony Ayeyo.
Come in.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Oh, not bad for young kid.
Very good, sir.
That's my wife,
Adele.
Adele.
Sergeant Montenay and I work in the homicide unit. We are charged with finding out what happened, getting to the truth, and figuring out who did what.
Yeah,
We're going to ask you a lot of questions.
please do.
It's okay.
Try to pin things
I
down.
want to answer him because we got to catch this person.
The family relations were rather complicated. Adele was Karen's biological mother. However, following the demise of Karen's biological father, Adele remarried Tony as her second spouse. Adele also had another child from her first marriage who had passed away when Karen was just a teenager. She told detectives that her son's death had a profound impact on Karen, causing her to distance herself from those closest to her. Once the detectives had gathered information about Karen's background, they asked her parents about their whereabouts on the tragic day of her murder.
Has she mentioned anyone else recently that she's had contact with that was new?
No,
Is there anybody at work she had a problem with?
no,
Anybody in life she had a problem
No.
with?
There was nothing of significance that they provided us related to other people. But then that's when we started to figure out the last time that they had seen her.
I brought the pizza with them.
So she
and
had
the
a...
cookies in a Ziploc bag.
Okay.
And it's the cookies that I make.
What day was that?
Saturday.
Pops fucked up. Cops horrified after discovering father's disgusting secret. Busting disgusting secret.
Do you remember about what time it was?
Around a little after 3 o'clock, wasn't it?
yeah, it was middle of the afternoon sometime.
So Saturday the 8th, about 3 p.m. So there was nobody else that was there when you got there. Did she mention that she was going to have anybody over?
Yeah, she said she could have a company. When I brought the pizza and the cookies over there, she goes, oh boy, we got pizza, we're going to have a party with my friends.
They found out that Tony had visited Karen's house on September 8th around 3 p.m. to drop off some pizza and cookies. He further clarified that throughout his visit, Karen was fine and they'd spent time together with no signs of trouble. As investigators continued their conversations with Karen's parents, they uncovered another potential lead. Tony mentioned he saw Karen's car passing by their house on September 8th with another person in it. Tony claimed this was sometime after his visit, suggesting that this individual might have been involved in Karen's death.
That was Saturday after you had dropped off
A
the
little
pizza.
after 5, I was outside.
Which direction was she going?
That way.
She was going down toward Piedmont?
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock, she's seen driving towards Piedmont, past Adele and Tony's house.
And there was a person on the other side, which he can't tell if it was a he or she.
Okay, but there was definitely one other person in the car
Oh,
with
yes.
her. We had to see if we could identify who that second person was in her vehicle later that afternoon at 5 p.m. because that person was the last person to see her alive, potentially.
The detectives searched for additional surveillance footage near Tony's house to determine if it aligned with his statement and found a surveillance camera that was installed across the street and which had a clear view of the neighborhood. However, upon reviewing the camera footage, they discovered that the footage did not show Karen's car, thereby contradicting Tony's claim.
We didn't see her car. We went even further, a couple hours after he said it. Maybe he got his times mixed up, and we went through the whole night and did not see the car that he described.
This called Tony's statement into question. It seemed that either Tony had been mistaken about what he'd seen, or perhaps he was hiding something. But considering his age, which was 91 at the time, it was almost impossible that he could be involved in any way. Therefore, he was never suspected. Despite all their efforts, the authorities still couldn't find the exact time of the tragic event that ended Karen's life. Eventually, the detectives got a warrant to retrieve the data from Fitbit. However, they still had to wait a bit longer to access the specifics of the Fitbit data.
Once we started looking into how to extract the data from the Fitbit, we started talking to folks at the Santa Clara County Crime Lab. Karen's Fitbit was using her desktop through the Bluetooth connection to sync with Fitbit's servers over the internet approximately every 15 minutes. But they explained to us they did not have the ability to extract that data. The data wasn't necessarily stored on Karen's computer, but it was used more as a doorway to Fitbit servers. We understood it would probably require something that only Fitbit could do. So we started making some phone calls to the company. We knew once the device was sent off, it would take at least a couple of days to do their examination. We really wanted to get answers for Karen's family and relatives and friends.
While the team was waiting for the Fitbit data, the investigators conducted a search in Karen's neighborhood to gather additional evidence. They found a Ring doorbell camera that had captured events outside Karen's home, and this presented an unexpected development in the case.
What we're looking for was movement around Karen's house.
The video footage confirmed Tony's arrival on September 8th at around 3 p.m., as he'd mentioned in his interview. However, detectives found that apart from Tony, no one else had arrived in Karen's driveway, contradicting Tony's claim that someone else was with her. Additionally, the surveillance footage from Karen's neighborhood showed that she didn't leave her home on that fateful day. It was clear that Tony was the last person who saw Karen before she died. It seemed like the detectives had finally found their mastermind. With this new information at hand, Tony became the primary suspect. But could he have been the killer? What motive would he have to commit something so horrific? The cops seemed to have found the stepdad's horrifying secret.
I had to take a step back and think to myself, okay, this is a 5-foot-tall, 90-year-old man. Is he capable of inflicting that kind of an injury to his stepdaughter? I mean, could he physically do that?
However, up to this point, investigators didn't have any concrete evidence linking Tony to Karen's murder. The turning point came when the Fitbit data was finally obtained, revealing crucial evidence that could uncover the truth about Tony.
And then right at that moment, when we're trying to determine when he arrived and when he left, that's when we received an email from Fitbit, and you could hear a pin drop.
The team anxiously opened the email, searching for the particular moment Karen's heart had stopped.
Fitbit was able to provide us with a number of different categories of data, one of which was for step count or movement. Another had to deal with heart rate. There was also information related to sleep patterns. The heart rate was the highest priority for us.
We were all waiting just with bated breath, like, okay, when was it? When did her heart actually stop?
The Fitbit revealed that on September 8th, Karen's heart rate had spiked until around 3:20 p.m. and then plunged. The final record showing her heart ceased by 3:23 p.m., just minutes after Tony had left her house. The detectives were now confident that Tony was involved in Karen's murder. Under the weight of this new evidence, officials sought an arrest warrant for Tony.
Sir,
San Jose Police, come over here.
Oh, you betcha. Oh, you betcha. Hi.
All right, come over here.
What's going on?
Let me see your keys. All right, turn around, turn around, turn around.
Wait, what is this?
Honestly, when we pieced all this together, I was kind of in shock. But we're like, look, this is just all lining up. I mean, we are following the evidence, and the evidence has taken us this direction.
This is I don't know.
Eager to confront him and gather the precise details of his actions, detectives wasted no time bringing Tony in for questioning. With Tony in the hot seat, detectives laid all the evidence on the table.
When we found Karen was wearing what's called a Fitbit. Do you know what a Fitbit is? Okay. I recall taking the time to explain to Tony what a Fitbit was and what it was good for. We had it analyzed for any movement that occurred. I will tell you this, that the movement stopped on the 8th of September, that same day that you went over to visit her. Okay? I'll also tell you that the heart rate monitor indicated when she passed.
Oh.
The heart rate monitor indicated she passed at 328.
And I was at 328?
You were there at 328. We need to know what happened.
What can I tell you? I have no way to tell you anything. If I was there that long, and I don't remember, that's it. I have no answer.
You don't have an answer?
No, why would I have an answer?
Initially, Tony stood by his original statement. However, after a while, the detectives noticed a sudden change in Tony's activity inside the room.
Tony started doing exercises like Jack LaLanne. He was obviously still a fit man. And I started to realize that he physically was definitely capable of committing this brutal homicide.
As the interrogation progressed, detectives also searched Tony's residence, where they uncovered crucial evidence.
While we're interviewing him, the crime scene is serving a search warrant over at Adele and Tony's house. The crime scene investigators are updating us as to what evidence they're finding. They found an axe, like a small axe, and a large butcher meat cleaver. They also found some blood on the sink that had been washed away. They found some blood on a couple shirts. And then they found blood on a camo raincoat that was found inside a shed at Tony and Adele's house.
The detectives continued their questioning while presenting him with evidence in the hope of finding any discrepancies.
They found a shirt real similar to the one that you're wearing now, except it doesn't have as many stripes in it. It's got blood all over the front of it. It's this one here. Yeah, that's your shirt in your house. They already tested it.
That's a blood spot there?
Yeah, they already tested it and they said it came back as blood. How did that get there? Tony, that's your shirt. It's the same t-shirt that I can see peeking out over the top here.
I have no idea. That's your blood? My blood or what?
That is blood. It's blood on the shirts.
Whose blood is it?
That's what we're going to find out. So here's why I'm asking you a very important question.
A lot of times I get cut and chopped and all that.
Tony seemed to be confused. However, the harder detectives pressed with their questions, the more excuses Tony began to offer.
Finding articles of clothing with blood on them is not necessarily abnormal inside a house. I understand that if someone cuts themselves, that there may be a smear of blood on their shirt or something of that nature, but there are different types of blood spatter that if you've seen them many, many times before, they're instantaneously recognizable. And that's what I was told was found on some of these shirts. Tony tried to explain that he had cut himself, but we actually looked at Tony physically. We looked at basically his entire body, and we found no indications of fresh cuts, no indications of healing cuts. So his statement didn't make sense.
As the questions grew aggressive, Tony's behavior became even stranger. He broke out into a cold sweat. However, when Tony was left alone briefly, He seemed to be ready to let his evil secret out. This is the exact moment he'd mess up and reveal the shocking details investigators had been waiting for. He came close to confessing his crime, mumbling something under his breath about a critical piece of evidence shortly afterward.
He was kind of mumbling to himself. And then Tony made...
I think he killed that other girl. Cause another daughter died there. One of their his stepdaughter died. Couple, like 20 somewhere, whenever. I think he killed that one too. He had to.
a major error.
Tony looked visibly shaken, and detectives got the sense that he was close to confessing at least part of the crime.
It can be. I heard that rainbow.
Salud is the heartbeat of Mexico. We don't just produce tequila. We craft...
Meanwhile, crime scene investigators uncovered a blood-soaked raincoat in Tony's shed. The odds were turning against him, as this was the very evidence he'd been mumbling about earlier.
Like, we're done. He's not admitting.
They been showed us that coat, though. What the y'all talking about? Y'all said y'all found that coat earlier. How many times y'all found the coat? Like, what the fuck?
It to Brian and I, but he's admitting it to himself, and he doesn't even know it.
The killer was caught, but the case was not over. The cops still didn't know why this 90-year-old man would kill his stepdaughter so mercilessly. After this, the detectives found even more proof which pointed to his motive behind the crime.
When we searched Tony and Adele's house, we found some interesting notations. It was obvious there was some concern about the transfer of estates in the event someone passed. Tony was being denied for loans, and we believe that he was kind of short on money.
There was a life insurance policy Adele would have had received through the death of Karen. I can only imagine or guess that maybe he wanted some of that, and that possibly could have been his motive for committing this homicide.
After weeks of the painstaking investigation, the authorities uncovered enough evidence to identify Tony Ayello as the killer. The pieces of the puzzle had come together, leaving no room for doubt. With key forensic findings and digital evidence supporting the timeline of events, the prosecution now had everything they needed to build a compelling case against Tony. The police apprehended Tony Ayello on September 25, 2018, on charges of first-degree murder. The prosecution had built a strong case against Tony, presenting a series of circumstantial evidence, including surveillance footage, Fitbit data, and forensic evidence, leading the case to proceed to the grand jury. After carefully examining the evidence, it was determined that there was sufficient cause to charge Tony Ayello with the murder of Karen Navarra. However, before a trial could start, Tony passed away on September 10, 2019. Because the case never went to trial, certain outlets began to question the investigation and whether they had the right man. Many speculated as to how a frail 91-year-old man with an arthritic hip could have overpowered and killed a woman in such a brutal manner. Tony also had a medical condition which led to the clotting of his blood very rapidly that caused him to bruise easily. This was significant because if he had been involved in a struggle with Karen, it's likely that he would have shown visible bruises or marks on his body, but he had no such marks. The accuracy of the Fitbit data, given that the devices are notoriously inaccurate at times, was also called into question. All these factors led to the people questioning the validity of the investigation, but with Tony's death, these would only remain as speculation. His death leaves many questions unanswered, depriving Karen's family of the closure they deserved. Despite the fact that the case didn't proceed to trial, the story highlights the value of digital evidence. Karen Navarra's family and friends were devastated by her tragic loss.
It was important for me to go to Karen's funeral. It was very difficult. The whole time I was crying. I wanted to say something, but I didn't find words. I was just in awe that people have so many good words to say about her.
We all get a rose and put it down to the grave for Karen. We say goodbye to her. I think it helped us to know that, despite how she passed away, she always with us.
The truth of her murder was a painful revelation. Knowing that someone she trusted was responsible made the loss even harder to bear. Yet, even as the investigation brought some relief, it couldn't heal the deep wound left behind. Her loved ones were forced to navigate a world without her laughter, support, and love. As we end this tale of deceit and murder,
alright, man. RIP to her, man. Real shit, man. We'll go ahead and end this video right here, man. Y'all go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Hope y'all have a blessed one. See y'all on the next video.